it was a process because I was during my out of body experiences, how it first started with me remembering my NDE, because I probably shared before that I didn't remember it all right away. I just remembered the falling on the falling out of the bus and getting run over, and I hurt, and everything was crazy. I didn't remember those experiences until I started having, or the NDE, until I started having out of body experiences where I was flying toward a sun, and I didn't, I'm trying to get this sun. I know if I get to this sun, then I'm going to be with God.
Today, I'd like to welcome back to the show Sharon Sananda Kumara. Sharon, welcome. It's an honor and a pleasure to have you back as a guest on this show. How is
Oh,
today treating you?
oh, thank you, Christina. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here as well, and to see your beautiful face once more on screen. Maybe one day we'll meet in person. But
I'm sure of
life
it.
is good. Life is
Yes,
good.
yes. Yes, I can't wait to meet you in person. I know that will happen soon. We're not actually that far away, actually.
No.
Well, Sharon, so she's coming back to the show today because we're going to talk about some projects that she's been working on. But the first time that I had you on my show, Sharon, you shared about your near-death experience. And we talked the whole episode pretty much about your near-death experience. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. If anyone's listening and you want to go watch that episode, I'll include the link to it in the description of this show. But just to kind of give us a little bit of a picture of your journey, would you mind giving us like the Reader's Digest or a very short summary version of your near-death experience?
Yes, of course. I've actually had two near-death experiences that I remember.
Yeah.
And okay, so the one in 2001 was a huge catalyst for me. And that's the one we talked about, if I remember correctly, of course,
Yes.
where I was, Reader's Digest version, I was tubing down the Guadalupe River in San Antonio, Texas, with some friends, got on the shuttle bus afterwards, after the day. And as the bus was driving down the road, we were packed into the bus like sardines, basically, and I was up against the back door. As he's driving down the road, the back door pops open. I'm thrown up against the back door and it pops open. Excuse me, and I fall out of the bus. And the trailer ends up running over my head. That's when I popped out, and I was met by my stepfather, and also I saw the ancestor portal, but I didn't go through it. I actually didn't go all the way through it. I actually saw another portal, like the sun, where Yeshua, Jesus, came out of the portal, and I was met by him, and I flew to him, and we had interaction there. Yeah, and I, as you know, when you talk about these experiences, you're like there again almost, where I was merging with him in the light. And then he ended up taking, both my stepfather and Yeshua told me it's not your time, and I didn't want to come home. I mean, I didn't want to stay. I didn't want to come back here. I wanted to stay home. And Yeshua ended up taking me on a journey to a water world planet, where I remembered this world as a home planet for me that I felt very, very connected with. So that was kind of the crux of that. I do share that experience, or a lot of it, but definitely not everything, in a compilation book which just came out with. I was invited to share some of that story in the book, and we had to put it within a certain amount of words, so I didn't have time to put my childhood experience in there as well, but or expand on it more profoundly with the experience. Uh, and the book is called Death, transformative near-death experiences, transformative near-death experiences. It's on Amazon. It was published March 21st. And I'm really honored to be a part of a group of 14 people who have shared their profound near-death experiences in this book. And it is published through the Near-Death Institute and Amira May, and she's done an amazing job of helping with getting near-death experiencers story out there to help people realize we don't die. We just change form.
Yeah. I love that you just said that, to help people realize that we don't die. And what you said in the first interview that I did with you, and what you just said again, was that you didn't want to come back. You wanted to stay home. I would love it if you could elaborate on that being our home, how we don't die, and how this reality that we experience on Earth as humans is not actually the end all be all. If you would go
Right.
there for a little bit.
Of course. Well, yeah, this experience is very limited compared to who we really are as a soul. Our soul is immense, and this is a soul. We are a soul aspect, being in a physical body. And this is what I've learned and remembered as Yeshua worked with me over the many years, still working with me, 20 years or so, and still working with me, helping me to understand reality the way I see it, or the way he's teaching me. And we're all learning every day, right? Every moment. And so this reality is an experience that we chose to experience duality, and the contrast of at home where we don't really, well, there's different as layers of home, of course, but it's where we remember who we are. As long as we have that awareness, we are able to access that awareness after we die. And I find that the more that we know here, the more that we remember who we are in this experience and take this aspect into the higher planes, the more we are able to travel through the realms in the higher planes and reach as high as we can. That's always my goal with my out of body experiences and in life, of course, is to reach as high as we can, right? To be love, to be light, and that's who we are. And we're expressing God source through our physical bodies. And so what I found out during my near death experiences and in my out of body experiences before my NDE in 2001 is that this is just another reality of what our soul is expressing all over the galaxy, all over the universe, basically. And this is just one reality. We're focused. A part of our soul is focused in this reality, in it because it's such a dense, slow vibration and frequency. Because I see realities as on rings of the sun. Whoops, sources like the sun, right? Mm-hmm. And the way I see it, and so we see them I see them on rings. And the farther we get out from source, move out from source, as our soul is shining out from on a light spectrum from source. We move through the rings of the sun source, and the farther we get out, the slower moving the frequency, because it takes a while to get around the sun, right, so to speak, as we're moving through the cycles. That's how I was am showing it, how it makes sense to me. And so this is one experience, one aspect on this ring, which is an outer layer of the universe of source, and it moves pretty slow. So it can be challenging. Being what we think is that far from source, right? But we're not, we're always connected. We are all one part of this, part of source. We're just in a slower, denser form. But home, back to your question, sorry, I kind of got on a tangent there. Home would be like not having the challenges we have here. Okay, the ego is no longer present when we're in our higher state, our higher frequency. Okay, but as a soul, we want to experience everything there is to experience. And so we choose challenging experiences, believe it or not. Yeah.
Right. Now, I'm so curious about so much of what you just said, and I do want to at some point get into this compilation and another project that you've been working on, but I really want to dive into something that you just said because it's actually something I've been thinking a lot about lately. So I've not had a near-death experience, but I do listen to them very often. I interview lots of near-death experiencers. I also have had very many spiritually transformative experiences. I think that's how you say it. I'm not sure, but STEs. And I can't remember what it was exactly that you said, but I think what I heard was that you said that a piece of our consciousness, like not our full consciousness, but just a piece of our consciousness is here in this reality. And so what I've been thinking about a lot lately, is it our whole consciousness that is aware of this, or is there a part of our consciousness that I guess would be our higher self that's still connected to home and the all-knowing, and that this piece that we've embodied right now is the piece that's veiled? Does that question make sense?
Oh yeah, total sense. And what I like to call it is a soul aspect. We are soul aspects. We're different personalities. We drop down in frequency and experience different personalities through different vehicles. We are light and we are love in expression. And so we need a vehicle basically to express that. Okay. To express our light, to express our love. And we have experiences. So we have different personalities that we and vehicles that we use, and we could call them a virtual reality projector that we use for all of our experiences. But yeah, at a higher part of our soul, our oversoul, I guess is what the terminology that Seth used in the Seth books. Our oversoul encompasses all of our soul aspects, and we have, and it's really awesome because we have so many soul aspects to experiencing different realities kind of all at the same time, kind of, as we see it, on the ring, on the rings of source. And so we're experiencing so many realities, not just on the earth, on this planet, but in other realities, other frequencies. And I'm 100% positive that I saw my future self recently when she visited me last year. I'm sorry, 2022, 22 she visited me in my room, and she had a bald head, large bald head, not huge, but a bald head. She was gorgeous. I mean, our higher selves, of course, are gorgeous, right? And she's wearing a robe type of garment, and her aura was pastel, and it was just, I could see her aura. It was tangible. I could see it. It was beautiful. But she was very human looking, very human, just didn't have any hair, had a bald head. So she didn't have to deal with hair. So my future self doesn't have to deal with hair anymore. I'm like, oh, thank goodness. So, but right. So there's so many aspects. And what I realized is that the higher we go in frequency is the higher frequency is the future of our future selves in the higher planes, right? When we say we came back to the planet, in reincarnation, we're coming back basically to our past from our higher self perspective. We're coming back into the outer rings, which would be like the past.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really fascinating. And I won't dive in here too much, but I recently started over the Course in Miracles, the lessons. So I completed a year and I started over and I'm back to the beginning. And the last few lessons have been that our minds are preoccupied in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And that nothing we see right now is as it is because our minds are preoccupied with the past. And so just as you were describing that, and having done it now, this is the third or fourth rotation of lessons I've done. I just put two and two together, and that was really fascinating. So thank you.
Of course, yes. Well, yeah, it's true. Everything that pretty much everything that we deal with in our life is based on our past experience.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, everything.
Yeah. Everything. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what these lessons really, really dive into. So maybe we'll just pause there because I do want to go back to now. I know you had two near-death experiences. I know you talked about both of them in the interview that I did with you a couple of months ago. So can you now share? You had one NDE and then you had another, but the other one actually was when you were a kid. Can you talk about that experience a little bit about how you remembered that and what that experience was like for you?
Sure. Yes, I didn't remember the NDE when I was a kid until I had my NDE in 2001. And then I started remembering my childhood because, as I expressed in the video, I'm sure that I didn't remember a lot of my childhood. And it didn't make sense why I didn't remember a lot of my childhood. But in my meditations that I sat with Yeshua, I told him I would sit in my meditation every night at 9 p.m. after my NDE. I promised him I would do that, which I did. And the memory came up where I was getting memories of violence against me as a child. And in one of the memories, and I will say, as these experiences are coming, when you have repressed trauma that's coming to the surface, you basically are in it again. Luckily, blessedly, it's not as bad, but I could smell the vomit. I could feel some of the pain. I could just stuff. So, so in this one experience, I'm in another violent situation with this person, and I was being beat up, and when he punched me so hard, I popped out of my. I could feel the pain for a moment, for a second, a split second, excruciating pain. And as soon as I felt the excruciating pain, I popped out of my head, and I felt this immense peace. And again, or before, or first time, but and just this immense peace and floating there. And this was in a dark space.
Mhm.
And I didn't talk about it for a while because I was hearing NDEs where everybody was in the light, you know, the light and all that, and which I had experienced in 2001 with Yeshua. But this I was in a dark space, but it wasn't scary for me. I was floating there in this beautiful space of velvety darkness, and I realized that some people were calling it the void. And I had this expansion where I could expand my awareness to encompass the universe. There was this sound which is like music, but it was beyond music, and this sound and vibration that was within me and around me. And I realized that this space I was in, anything that was out of place, there was something there to balance it and put it back in harmony and back in balance. And as I'm floating in that beautiful space and remembering, and I was 9 years old as a little girl, that was gone. My awareness comes back into my body. I see a light to my right, and I realize that there's this a light approaching me. And again, it's Yeshua, or the first time, it's Yeshua. It's Yeshua that walks out of the light in his robes, and he greets me, and he tells me, this time he tells me, he says, you don't have to go back, my child. You've suffered enough. He says, you suffered enough, my child. You don't have to go back. And I argue. I said, well, I know I do. I need to, because I don't want to have to start over. I knew in that awareness that I didn't want to have to reincarnate and start over and finish my life plan, or my soul plan, basically.
Mhm.
And he said, are you sure? And I said, yes. And then I was back. So he
Yeah.
gave me a chance. I didn't want to have to start over, which is very different in 2001, where
Right.
I want to stay. I want to stay with you, please.
Yes. And in that one, he told you that it wasn't your time.
He told me it wasn't my time. Yes. And at that point, I wasn't awake to my spiritual life plan. I was having out of body experiences, but they weren't, I just wanted to find my dad at that time. And and I was having more earth plane type of experiences. But after the NDE in 2001 is when they started really getting deeper and having really crazy experiences to where my progress started, my spiritual progress really catapulted beyond my wildest dreams. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that. I love that you came back both
Me too.
times. I love that you made the choice when you were a kid and that Yeshua told you, nope, it's not your time in 2001, because I just know in our connection, there's been so much that we have in common, so much growth. And now there are, several books being published, or one that already has been published, that you have been a part of. So I'm curious if you would, I know there's compilations that you've co-written with other authors, and then there's one that you are writing for yourself. And so I'm curious if you would paint a picture of that journey. I know in our last interview, I literally asked if you had written a book, and you said not yet. And that was maybe 6 months ago. I think it was September of 2023. So I'd love to hear the journey that inspired you to take your experiences and not only speak about them in podcasts, but put them into a piece of art for others to digest as well.
Oh, of course. Well, thank you, Christina. Yes. Well, well, first of all, I was asked to be a part of another compilation book that highlights children's NDEs. And so AJ Parr asked me to be a part of that book, and that's not published yet. He's still working on that, but I'm honored to be a part of that, and that should be coming out this year, I believe. And as far as my personal book, that is already written. I've sent it to the publisher. It's in that stage now, and that is scheduled to be published June 21st of this year. So I'm really excited about that. It's taken me 10 years to write this book, meaning that I would start it and write, and then something would get in the way. And I'm sure if anyone writes or wants to write a book or has started writing a book, you understand that. And so I go back to it, and I'm like, and I didn't really feel that either I was ready. I didn't, obviously there was something in me that needed to be healed, or something that needed to happen and transpire in my community or the world around me, or something like that. I don't know what. And it's probably fear, because it's a crazy journey, and I've included experiences in that some communities might not find as that might go against the grain of the belief system, like the Catholic Church, and things like that. With my experience, my Mary Magdalene, Yeshua, how I saw Yeshua through the eyes of Mary Magdalene when he walked the planet. Those types of experiences, as well as including some extraterrestrial type of experiences and contacts, and some really crazy stuff. And so it's, as far as getting it down in a cohesive manner, that was the challenge. Luckily I journal everything pretty much. So yeah, it was just a matter of just saying, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And I started it, or not, well, I started 10 years ago at least, but I started doing it very seriously and putting it in some kind of comprehensive form about a year and a half ago. And I was able to finish it. And I still have 3 other books that I've started as well, which my out of body experience book, started that one. I started the past life therapy book. so so this isn't the end, but yeah, it's about 200 pages long, and I still haven't included nearly half of what I could share in it.
Yeah.
It's I will say that I realized as I'm writing it that it was more for me than anyone, because it helped me heal. Yeah. And if it helps one person, I'm happy.
Yeah. I want to kind of go into some of the healing that you referenced. And in particular, what's standing out the most is how you mentioned that when you saw Yeshua through the eyes of Mary Magdalene and extraterrestrial experiences, contact. I'm curious because 10 years ago, there was not as open of a space to have these conversations. 15 years ago, when I started my journey, when I really started to wake up and my spiritual journey was accelerated, it was definitely not received well when I would talk about those things. And even in my current life, being as open and authentic as I am, I do hold back. And so I'm curious if you would talk about that part of the journey in writing your book, and maybe how that relates to how so many people are now not only having these experiences, but waking up and opening their minds.
Yes, thank you. As far as the relationship with Yeshua and Mary Magdalene, yeah, I was seeing that 20 years ago in meditation, and seeing the that they were a husband and wife type of relationship, a partnership relationship like that. And I remember the first time he showed that to me in my meditation, I pulled myself out and I'm like, whoa, 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 what's going on here? You know, I didn't know what the heck was going on. I didn't know anything really about Mary Magdalene, except there was something inside me that told me that she wasn't a prostitute. Okay. I just felt that inside me. And because that's the narrative, which really doesn't say in the Bible that she is. Uh, and when they talk about Yeshua helped her with healing the seven sins or seven demons or something like that, I believe that's the psyche, and that's what we all go through, right? And what we all
Yeah.
do, and he had to do that in himself in his fasting time. His, was it 40 days and 40 nights? I don't I'm not a Bible scholar, as you can tell, but yeah, something like that. So when he went through his dark night of the soul, I feel like that was a dark night of the soul, what he was dealing with. What, yeah, it's just that it was looked at differently. And so yeah, that was difficult for me to talk about with people or anyone. And I, every once in a while, I now especially come across people that also have an affiliation with Mary Magdalene, and or the Marys, Mother Mary, but specifically with Mary Magdalene, it's a different type of relationship than the mother, right? Mother Mary, who I adore beyond anything, of course. Uh, and so Yeshua helped me. He helped me with that. He helped me to find the courage to talk about it, and also to working with my soul, me working with him, to bring people to get in my path that were also looking for some kind of connection with other people who were aligning with Mary Magdalene in a different way than what we've been shown or told.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that Jesus, or Yeshua, however you refer to him, I know you call him Yeshua,
Mm-hmm.
helped you to get the courage to share these things.
Yeah.
And the divinity in that there were other people who were having experiences, other people who might have needed to feel that they weren't alone, and how the courage to share is, really helping our consciousness evolve. And in the AA program, which is where I have my sobriety roots in, we share our experience, strength, and hope to help another. So I just find that that's beautiful. And I'm curious if there's anything else, because I feel like there are a lot of people out there who might be starting to experience some even slightly metaphysical um, experiences and might be afraid to talk about it. I know a lot of people who had a near-death experience, they share that they kept it really, really private for a couple of reasons. One, that it was so sacred that they didn't want to share it, but two, because they didn't want to be seen as crazy or be told that they were hallucinating because the experience was true for them. So I'm wondering if there was any other assistance or healing that happened that gave you that final nudge to get your book completely written.
Well, it was a process. I was remembering more and more of my NDE over the years. I'd remember, and there's still parts of it that I, during my meditations or when I'm writing, when I'm journaling, and something will come up, and it's like, you know what? I remember that now, and that's the way we are. We compartmentalize things to until we have room for it, right? And understand it. But yeah, it was a process because I was during my out of body experiences, how it first started with me remembering my NDE, because I probably shared before that I didn't remember it all right away. I just remembered the falling on the falling out of the bus and getting run over, and I hurt, and everything was crazy. I didn't remember those experiences until I started having, or the NDE, until I started having out of body experiences where I was flying toward a sun, and I didn't, I'm trying to get this sun. I know if I get to this sun, then I'm going to be with God. That's all I knew. When I get to that sun, I'm going to be with God. That's and I'd come back to my body before I could get there. And it took me a little while to put that together with, my NDE, because, pieces of it started dropping in, started unfolding for me. And I also would have experiences where Yeshua was in my out of body experience, those types of things. And I thought, why would he? I mean, why would he be here? Right. Uh, Not that I didn't enjoy having him there, because still believed in him, being raised Catholic. I just didn't, I just felt like he was kept away from us, in those teachings, but I still believed in him. And I knew in my soul who he really was. And, and so those things started happening, and he taught me to journal right away. When he started working with me, that it's really important to journal and get these things out and get them down on paper, because that way you can see it from a different perspective and process a lot better and easier. And I was having out of body experiences where I would end up in a water world as a mer. And I look down, I'm like, I'm a mermaid, okay, well, that's cool. I've always loved mermaids and dolphins, and I'm swimming and living, existing in this water environment. And it took me a minute or two to remember how to breathe. I didn't have to breathe because I would panic at first, and so things like that were being dropped in for me in my meditations, and him sitting with me in my meditations and guiding me and taking me on these other journeys as well to help me heal. First, it was through, I went through so many, I write about this in my book, so many past life uh, soul retrievals, those types of experiences. He brought me into my soul records, and to see these lifetimes all the way back to galactic wars, um, that were fragmented. Part of my soul was fragmented and still repeating this cycle of trauma, that I needed to bring those parts of myself in. And some of them were a tough journey because I didn't understand what was going on. So he helped me with that. As I brought in different parts of my soul that were fragmented, helping to make my soul more whole, soul aspect more whole, or the oversoul more whole, I was remembering things more and more, and I was diving in deeper. And what we're doing is diving deeper into our soul, right? Our oversoul. and becoming more full. Yeah.
Yeah. I love how you just said that, becoming more full. So one of the perspectives that I got a long, long time ago in my journey is that every time I experience a healing or have, an opening in my mind, I'm filling in
Mm-hmm.
those parts of me that
Perfect.
may have been, I'm putting this together in this conversation. I'm filling in those parts that were fragmented, like what you just said. So,
Nice.
yeah. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. I do feel like that in my own experience, and I can only talk about my experience, but as I interview people, as I talk to people, there's so much more acceptance of these topics and experiences to be shared, yet there is still a lot of fear around being judged or not being taken seriously. So I'm so excited that there are so many people that are not only sharing their experiences in podcasts like this, but also writing their experiences so that we can read about them. And what fascinates me is that not only did you write your book, but you also wrote a compilation with multiple people. So I'd love it if you could talk
Yeah.
about how that unfolded, what inspired you to be a part of that, and what can we learn from that book as well.
The compilation book that's out now.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I was contacted by the publisher. She had seen one of my shares, an interview,
Mhm.
and she contacted me and asked me if I would be willing to be part of her project, and which is the first project she actually did in forming the Near Death Institute. And she has all kinds of projects going on now too. And what's funny is, and this is how the universe works, right? This is how God does. I was thinking I was getting toward, the end of writing my book, and when she contacted me, I was probably in about 3/4 of the way, and I didn't have a publisher yet, and I knew some people that were publishers, but I'm like, yeah, I don't know if this is the right space for them, or something.
Yeah.
So she contacts me just out of the blue, and I'm like, yeah, I would love that. I mean, I loved her idea about bringing other people's near death experiences together in one book. And it's I mean, there's others out there, but it was she invited us to be a part of the process, the project, the whole deal, and which was, I thought, was really amazing. And so there's other people and you might be interviewing some of those people too, yeah, that have some amazing stories to share. And so I'm really honored to be a part of that group. And Amira is is an amazing person, and so she's also publishing. The Near Death Institute is publishing my book. So then I'm like, oh, I just love how she's doing this with this book. I think I have my publisher for this book. Yeah.
Awesome.
That's how that journey happened. So the universe opened up for me,
Yeah.
and so much more to come.
Yeah. I love that. I love this whole synchronicity that you were almost done, then you were asking about a publisher, and then someone contacted you, not only to be a part of a co-creation with other near-death experiencers, but then is also publishing your book. Like, how can it be any less meant to be?
Exactly.
So, yes. All right. Well, I know that we have been chatting for a while. So before we close, I'm curious
Mhm.
if there's anything else around the books or your experiences or something we haven't talked about today that you would like to share.
Oh gosh. Well, there's so much. We oh, I don't know. Yeah, well, my upcoming book, I will say, is a wild ride. Let me just say that. Okay, that's coming out in June. So if you like wild rides, you won't be disappointed. for sure. It's a wild ride. It's a wild ride for me. If I was to read it from someone, I'd think this woman's, you know, wow, that's a wild ride. Okay. But anyway, yeah, my goal always is to just help people, as many people as possible with their own journey. And there isn't anything that surprises me anymore based on my experiences, and that's probably why I'm having them. Is that when I hear people share their own experiences, and the first thing a lot of people say is, "I know this sounds crazy, and you probably won't believe it." I'm like, there isn't anything that sounds crazy to me anymore. Let me tell you. Yeah. So share away. Let me tell you, share away, because
Yeah.
nothing surprises me anymore. And the veil is thinning. And I believe that we are definitely in those times where people can feel a lot safer about sharing their experiences. Maybe I had to wait till I got old enough where I didn't care what people think anymore in order to share. Right? Because you get to that, that stage in your life where it's like, I don't care what people think anymore. So yeah, we're just blessed that so many people are sharing experiences that 10 years ago, maybe even 5 years ago, a lot of people might be rolling their eyes.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That opens up the mind.
Yeah, I agree. I think just within the last few years, there's been a huge collective opening of the mind, and there's so much more space to share our experiences now than even just 5 years ago compared to 10. So yeah, thank you so much for being such a pillar of light and for wanting to share what you know and what can help others return to, right? That's the entire point of my podcast, is to deliver any information that helps someone return to the truth of who we are. And I think that I haven't read your book. Obviously, it's not published yet, but I'm so excited to, because I think that there will be so many golden nuggets in there that help us remember the truth of who we are, because we are so heavily veiled here, and it's hard to remember. It's very hard to remember, but what I understand is we signed up for that too, to forget.
Yeah, we're not here against our will. No.
Right. Right. Well, okay. Thank you so much, Sharon. So for anyone who's stayed tuned this long, I will include the compilation, the link to the compilation in the description of this show. I'll include as well the other interview where we went in depth about her near-death experiences and from start to finish. And I believe we did talk about how you remembered your childhood near-death experience in that as well. So if you want to watch that video, just check the link below and stay tuned for any other updates for when her actual book is published and ready to be released. So,
well, thank you.
Thank you so much, Sharon. It's an honor. It's always a pleasure having a chat with you. And I'm sure that I'll have you back. Thank you so much.
All right. Mwah. All right.
I would like to personally thank you for tuning in to this episode. If you haven't already, please be sure to like this episode, subscribe to my channel, and turn on notifications so that you never miss a beat. And if you really resonated with this content, please share it with all of your friends so that collectively we can expand our consciousness. Have a very blessed week.